Welcome to the MX podcast featuring Dan Roberts, the female fitness, well-being and holistic lifestyle show that helps you get the mind of an athlete and body of your dreams.
Welcome to another episode of the MX podcast. Today I'm joined by Ria Ingleby. Now, Ria, do you know why I've asked you on today? There's a few reasons. There's 4 reasons why I think you're the most amazing guest.
Well, firstly, that's so kind of you to say. One of the reasons, we've known each other for a long time now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're friends. That's one reason.
Absolutely. I think definitely the connection to all the work with Methodology X back in 2014.
Yes, we'll talk about that. That's the second reason.
Those are the only reasons that spring to mind at the moment for me.
Well, look, I set up this podcast as a platform to inspire and educate regarding well-being. And looking at your career, like, you understand well-being from so many different angles. It's quite rare. So you've got knowledge. Obviously, you're kind and knowledgeable, but you really understand fitness, nutrition, well-being, healing, trauma, all the things around wellness from so many different perspectives. Not just like, for me, all my experience is like a one-on-one level, but you've done it on a corporate level. You've had your own businesses. You've worked for big organizations looking after their well-being. So you've got a very unique perspective on wellness, which I don't have. So I definitely want to pick your brain about that. That's one reason. And also just what's happened to you recently. You know, you've been through hell recently, and the way you've dealt with it has been so truly inspiring. And I think talking about it, which I know you're happy to talk about, is not only interesting, but I think will be really useful to people listening.
Oh,
so
thank you. I hope
I'm really
so.
excited. No, it will be. That's why I'm excited. But I think the best place to start is to actually talk a little bit about your career. So let's explore that for a few minutes, and that'll give you context, and then we'll go into the heavy stuff. Okay?
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
So over to you. Where did it all start?
Wow, where did it start? So I guess it really started with, I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And from a very early age, and I kind of sensed it was going to be the conventional route I would go down, go to university and do the degree and become a teacher. And for various reasons, that was never possible for me. So I was slung straight into the world of work at, a very young age. And through just different experiences, I still paved a way to become a teacher. So, in my early 20s, I qualified as a fitness instructor. I was the one in the lycra, doing grapevines and box steps, and just honestly, just having such a blast with the intention of just having some fun and getting people to move to music. It was such a passion of mine. And as I evolved as a person and I started to learn more and more, I found that there was a lack of flexibility in the way that the fitness market was going for group classes. So there was a very well-known brand coming in onto timetables, which was great in terms of having some structure and framework and uniformity, but it also killed the creativity. Mm-hmm. And it kind of synced in line with me having my daughter, Imogen. So I went on to train as a personal trainer. And I did that in parallel to my job, my corporate job, which was in the world of people. So classically called human resources, although I don't really like that term. But in that world, I very much specialized in learning and development. So I guess you could say that my career has all been about developing and helping people reach their potential, be it professionally or personally. And my appetite in both of those worlds are still very present even to this day. I continue to learn and grow as an individual in the health and fitness industry. I went on to do my meditation teacher training and yoga. And in kind of within the corporate setting, I remember somebody saying to me, a recruiter, you really need to clean up your LinkedIn profile, Ria, because it's confusing for people. And it's because on there, I had all my fitness qualifications and all my HR qualifications. And he said, just pick one. And I said, no, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a few years later, I ended up heading up wellbeing at Vodafone. where I was able to bring and integrate those two worlds together of, you know, the world of people in workplaces with the world of health and fitness and well-being. And very much have stayed in that place and still occupy some of those rooms in business, as well as what I do outside of that place as well.
Yeah, I mean, I first met you. Were you still at Vodafone when I first met you? I think you were.
Yes, I would have been. Yeah.
Almost like 6-7 years ago. I think it was when
7 years. Yeah.
7 years ago. Wow. So for people listening, actually, Ria was actually the very first Methodology X ambassador. We had brand ambassadors back then, and she was the very first person to actually talk about the community aspect of MX. So that I never really thought about it, because I just had, like, at the time it was an ebook, and since then it's grown. Yes. So you're a big kind of part of that. Expanding it and sort of really believing in it as a product. And you're definitely a big part of the history of MX and the future as well, because you're a certified instructor as well. So it's so nice to have you on now talking to you, because so much has happened since then. Yeah. So all right, so let's talk about what you've been through recently. So I mean, I think it's probably best for you to describe it. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but
you know, it's really fascinating for me, because back in 2014, when I applied to become a Methodology X, a Dan Roberts Group ambassador, I had just had major surgery after my original cancer diagnosis. Now, I was 34 years old. I'd had a total hysterectomy, my ovaries removed. I was in surgical menopause, and quite frankly, I was really needing some connection back to my body again as a trainer as well. And your whole campaign around Love Your Body just landed with me so much. And that really kind of took me into applying and then, like, working alongside you as an ambassador. And then 2020 happened for all of us. And all of us have so many of experiences, not only because of the pandemic, but all of the things that the pandemic also created for each and every one of us. And I think for me at that point, I had celebrated 6 years remission in 2020. And I really felt like all of the things I'd studied and was starting to let go of after fear had called the shots for so long of, is the cancer ever going to come back? I'd finally felt like I was getting to a place of peace.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, August last year, I knew something wasn't right. And, you know, I did the right thing. I went and got checked out. And then after lots of scans and back and forwards, in the October, I was diagnosed with cancer again. And it was a reoccurrence. And it literally obliterated my world, because I think when you're diagnosed with cancer anyway, it like breaks you. And all the things that you sort of, you know, I was thinking about my daughter, who at the time in 2014, she was 2 years old. And then this time round, it was just like, is this ever going to just leave me alone? Like,
what was it worse, getting the diagnosis the second time?
Yeah.
Was it worse than the first time?
Yeah.
Emotionally,
mentally, like physically, spiritually, on all different layers. And I think it really blew away this whole concept for me that, you know, after the first diagnosis, that's when I realized that I was physically, you know, in really good shape. Going into surgery back in 2014, I was doing lots of exercise, lots of weight training, personal training clients. Like, my physical fitness was just the best. And that's, you know, after I'd had a daughter, so a couple of years on, like I'd rebuilt my body back. I'd had a better relationship with it again. So when 2020 come along, I was like, hang on a minute, like I've done the whole physical thing. And I thought that, okay, get that. I've been doing the whole mental, emotional, spiritual journey since that original cancer diagnosis.
Yeah. And you've been teaching it. You teach well-being.
I've been teaching it.
Yeah, so it's in your,
I was like,
deep in your soul, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just like, this is just not fair. Like, why me? Which I'm sure so many people say exactly the same thing. And I just didn't get it. I was like in that place of, what have I done for this to return again? And it was the most terrifying place I think I've ever been in, like lots of dark nights of the soul.
It's I mean, that kind of why me thing is so, I think it's common. It's such, and this is the one sort of bad thing about people, about all the kind of talk about how you can heal yourself. Because if you feel you can always make yourself well, then if you're not well, then it must be your fault. And it's like, that's all, I mean, how do you balance that?
Yeah, and this is where I had to really reframe and dig into a lot of my practices and teachings with my own meditation teacher, that was the wrong question to ask. And I even recall an individual had said to me last year, often when these things come back, it's because we haven't learned the lessons we did the first time round.
Oh my God.
And
that makes me angry.
And
how did you respond to that?
I was just absolutely speechless, almost like I am now.
Yeah.
Like, I can
what a heartless and ignorant thing to say.
And that then really taught me that this is beyond any of these kind of superficial questions that we can originate. It goes deeper than that. It's, when we look at the stuff that's going on in the world, we can sort of have lots of why questions, and there's not a simple answer. It's so much more complex than that. So I moved away from, all of those common questions I'm sure that many people say when they get a life-threatening diagnosis, whether they're the person or a relation to the person suffering. And I changed the question to, what can I learn from this? What can it teach me? And that was really the start of the shift.
How did you manage to do that though? Because in theory, I mean, it sounds like I get that. It's like, yeah, reframe it. I can intellectually understand it, but it's not just an intellectual exercise. It's a deeply emotional thing going on. So how did you actually, reframe it? How did you just decide, or did you work through it? I'm really interested in how you did that, because I don't know how I would cope personally, or how I would, because that takes a lot of strength to do that.
It was a step-by-step process. There were days when I absolutely were like, well, I don't want to learn anything from this at all. Like, this totally sucks. This is just total BS. There were definitely those days. There'd be nights where I would scream into a pillow on my bed, because I didn't want my daughter to hear the terror that I had inside me. So the what can it teach me, what can I learn, really come from the curious mind that I've really started to develop over my years of meditation practice. To really think about the essence of meditation, of being very aware of what's happening in that moment. And I was able to really take it back to a basic practice of that, when thoughts arise, just label them thinking and come back to the breath again, to really just calm me down, like really just soothe me, calm me down. And I started to do a lot of rituals, so for example, I had, before my treatment, just after my treatment started, I made the decision to have something called a portacath put into my chest. And I was so scared prior to having it put in, just the way that the consultant had described it. It was like, oh, we're cut open your chest, we'll put this little port in, we'll put it in through the jugular vein, and that's how the chemo get into your body. It was just like, the minute he said jugular vein, he lost me. I was like, I'm not having anything like that in my body. But then after my first treatment, I was like, actually, it's really traumatic to have a needle put in your arm each time, with the risks of the chemo.
Oh, is it for chemo, is it? Or
for chemo. So after the first one, I made the decision to have it put into my chest. And in terms of what can this teach me, I started to become really aware of the fear, the anger that was very present.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can either keep resisting this, keep reacting to this, or I could draw it in closer and befriend it, like the cancer.
So when you first got diagnosed, what did they tell you when you got diagnosed exactly?
In 2020?
Yeah, the most recent one. What did they say?
Yeah, so they said to me, it's a local reoccurrence. So it was in similar body area than I had. It had started to spread in my pelvis, which described why when I was sat down in a car or in a chair, I would be in a lot of discomfort and pain. Even, you know, some car journeys, we would have to stop.
Yeah.
So I could stand. It was starting to cover my liver. I was fortunate that it hadn't gone into any of the major organs at that point. So what can I, you know, when, and the words that were being used with me were, you know, almost like the status quo language that you often find. So it's really aggressive, Ria. I can't guarantee anything. We don't know if this is, we don't know if this will work, hasn't worked on some, you know, the language used is quite common, I think, in the realms of consultants. So
yeah,
kind of, if you're scared already, which most people are, like it can take you on a very quick slippery slope that you have no control. That is it, it's game over.
Talking about this language for a second, just one thing which bothers me a lot, and it may not bother you, or you may have some views on it, but I don't really like the term fighting cancer.
No.
I don't like it at all. And what are your views on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. So, you know, I've used that term before. My mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she passed away in 2004. And it never really sat right with me that individuals around us would say, you know, she fought so hard. It just never resonated. And I was talking to a really good friend last year when I started to blog my experiences.
Yeah.
And I said to him, it's not about fighting, because actually nobody's been and put this in my body. I haven't been injected with cancer. Mm-hmm. This is something in my natural body that has just multiplied, and for whatever reason, it's hoodwinked my immune system, and it's just having a party. And it's time it realized that the party's over. Thanks for coming. You're no longer welcome.
Yeah.
And to treat it like a party guest, to befriend it. So I made the decision that I wasn't going to fight cancer, because if a consultant's telling me that the actual cancer itself, the cells, are known to be quite aggressive, then if I'm aggressive, then it's going to be even more. Like, I just take it back to the basics. If you put two dogs together that are both aggressive, no one's going to win. So
no, I'm with you on that. For me, it's for two reasons. One is that reason exactly. I don't think it's helpful at all. I think it's detrimental to the person dealing with it. Yeah. I don't think it's the right way of looking at it. But also, I find it very disrespectful for people who haven't survived. Do they not fight hard enough? Exactly. You know, it's like, really? Is that what you're saying? So I just find it on whoever, you know, however it affects you. I just find it very, it just annoys me. But
yeah, and I totally like I've had those annoyances myself, and for me there needs to be a transition into the language that we use and how we speak about cancer, COVID. You know, there's so much fear mongering going on, and in those places of health and illness, you want to have as much positive language that's full of hope, rather than consistent fear mongering or like these call to arms, aggressive language.
Yeah, totally. Have there been, I mean, how long did the treatment take from when you first diagnosed to when you kind of had the all clear? I mean, I know the answer, but people listening.
So the treatment started in November and it went all the way through to middle of March. So about 5.5 months. I begged.
And that's a pretty shit time. I mean, that was when, like, with COVID happening, there's like
third lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the UK, just it was a miserable time for everybody. So dealing with that, I mean, I guess, did you even think about COVID much? I mean,
I was really fortunate.
I guess to be conscious, to be, obviously your immune system was like massive.
Yeah, I mean, I was like absolutely shitting myself with the whole third lockdown with COVID. And what was really interesting for me though, and two things on this is, I felt like I was in a protective bubble where there was just a lot more care around cancer patients. And I know that that's not the case for everybody. I've got friends that really wasn't, that thoughtfulness around taking care of people with cancer wasn't always present. And also because schools were closed, there was one side of homeschooling during chemotherapy, and at the same time knowing that my daughter was going through this experience with us, and we would literally were in like a little bubble of 3 at home with our dogs.
Yeah.
Going through it in the winter, there were definitely days where it absolutely was depressing and sad because it's winter and we can't really go anywhere.
The whole national mood was pretty, I mean, now it's a bit more upbeat, whether it should be or not is a different question, but winter, everyone was just down. So when the whole society is down, and then and hospitals getting fully booked up, and you're dealing with this, it must have been just hellish for you.
I chose to stop watching news.
Yeah, don't blame me.
My hubby to just update me on things that he felt I needed to know in terms of what was going on sort of globally, nationally. I actually really harnessed winter. So if we think about nature, winter is all about letting go. It's about hibernation. It's about deep rest. It's about really honoring what Mother Nature is trying to teach all of us. So this is where cancer taught me, and I wanted to lean into the lessons and the growth. And I thought, well, if I'm going through this through winter, that means that all the cancer cells are going to die. It's just a natural essence of letting go. And that the deep rest and the hibernation is all part of the cyclical nature of the cyclical kind of part of nature. So I'm gonna operate from that place. That's where I can really grow and learn and see this as something to lean into and embrace as much as I possibly can.
Amazing. Let me ask, when you first dealt with the first time you had cancer, what did you learn the first time, if anything? The first time? That must have been a hell of a journey because you were so young.
I was so young, and
you're young now. I mean, it's so unfair. I mean, you're young now, but I mean, you're particularly young.
Yeah, 34.
Yeah.
We were trying for another baby. Imogen was 2 years old. I come out of that, and the kind of aftercare, you can go and ask and join groups, but most of the groups first, I think, like womb cancer and gynae cancers, there were, the demographic wasn't necessarily a 34-year-old woman. It was a lot of women in their 60s or 70s. And that just didn't resonate for me with some of the wonderful work that charities do, but it just didn't fit for me.
It wasn't set up for young.
No, it wasn't set up for people, women that are younger. And so I got super angry. My mental health really suffered extensively. Nobody had really described that menopause anyway can have a real impact on women's mental health. And I only learned that really in the last year or so, just the impact that menopause, and particularly surgical menopause, because you go from having like healthy levels of hormones in your body to then literally like nothing, because it just all gets taken away pretty much.
Yeah, so physiological and mental, also identity as well, right? I mean, it must
massively,
being a woman, I mean, it's like, it must feel weird.
Yeah. And I during that time, like fear and anxiety and bouts of depression definitely were my lived experience for most of those sort of 5 or 6 years of coming to terms with that original cancer diagnosis when I was 34. And I decided, this time round that I wasn't going to play into that storyline anymore, because it hadn't served me for 6 years.
Yeah, and it must have been just so exhausting. You don't want to go through that again. You can't help the diagnosis, but you can, in a way, control how you react to it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So this time round, have you learned anything? I mean, it sounds so crass to say learn, but has anything been reconfirmed, or have you learned any new lessons about yourself or about anything in this recent experience you've had?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the most profound experience I had was when I chose to shave all my hair off. You know, going into that, I remember it was a Sunday morning. We were about to go into lockdown again. So, you know, I was trying to get the appointment. My chemotherapy was starting the week after. And I remember sitting on the bed and just holding my hair and putting my hands through my hair. It was about shoulder length, and just saying thank you to my hair, and really trying to calm myself down, because I was so terrified of what would happen when I had it all cut and shaved off. And what actually materialized, and which is such a valuable lesson for me, is I sat in the chair and I asked the person if we could do a ritual. And this had come from a good friend of mine who's a medicine woman. And he put my hair all into tiny little ponytails. I had like literally all sorts of like several ponytails all on my head. We had music playing, like really upbeat music that I'd picked, candles. And he started to cut off one by one. And every time he cut, I would say thank you. And then I shaved, then he started to shave it all off. And the last bit, which was the front of my head, I shaved it off. And I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in my life, I had total acceptance for who I was as a person. Because I realized that I was no longer defined by my hair, my makeup, my clothes, something so big as cutting all your hair off. It made me really appreciate that behind all of this is a person that sees through these eyes. And I just had such acceptance and love for myself.
Wow, what a profound experience. I love the idea of that ritual. That sounds like it was a really good move.
Yeah, it totally was. Yeah.
Yeah, and you rocked it. You look great with no hair. I loved it. G.I. Jane. It's great.
It was very G.I. Jane. So I spent a lot of money on this amazing wig that my daughter had named Xena. And, you know, occasionally when I wanted an alter ego, it's like Xena would come out. But a lot of the time, even when I lost all of my hair and was literally bald, like less hair than my husband, I was like, it was all about acceptance for who I was in that moment.
But again, that's a very good lesson, because so many of us are kind of trapped by vanity, I guess. And I think it's always good to remind ourselves that we are more than our bodies, our body shape, our hair, our makeup. You know, talk to anyone who's been through anything, you know, like people have lost a leg and stuff like that. It's like, God, I can't believe I was worried about stuff before. You change the way of thinking about your body. Yeah. Hopefully you don't fall, you know, it stays with you forever. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that was one of the most sort of profound experiences I had, that set the course for then how the treatment was going to go. That some of it was on my terms.
Yeah, excellent. Let's go back to like the body image side of things. So where are you now in terms of like how you feel about your body? Not just obviously the way you look, but the whole thing. I mean, how do you feel?
So I've wrote so many poems about my body, about the body. Yeah. So I am, you know, I remember a poem that I wrote towards the end of my treatment called My Humble Heart. And it talks about our heart beats 100,000 times a day. So the relationship I have.
Do you have it? Why don't you read it out? Do you have it?
I do.
You read it out. Yeah, find it.
Let me find it and I'll bring it up.
There's no rush. Thank you so much for being so candid about this. I know, do you find it hard talking about it or not?
So I find it hard talking about it when it comes out of the blue. And it catches me unawares, or I don't know, or I see something on telly, or I hear of another situation involving cancer. When I like really mindfully, and I use that word, you know, deliberately, when I really mindfully decide that I want to do something and to have a bigger conversation around it, then I'm really open to where the conversation takes.
But you have to kind of mentally, like before you came on, we just went, you know, live as soon as you came on, for like 5 minutes beforehand. Did you have to get yourself like calm and kind of ready to talk about this, or were you kind of already?
I think I was already there. I mean, I practice, I have a pretty much a daily practice of meditation. So that really helps keep me grounded. I do about 20, like I find 20 minutes is a real sweet spot for me.
Okay.
You know,
what kind of meditation do you do?
I do a breath awareness meditation. So it's all mindfulness, meditation. So I use the breath to focus my attention. I lit a incense stick. So, you know, I ritualize things. So even in the session today, I brought up, I've got a green tea that I'm drinking. I've got an incense stick. Yeah, it's kind of like I create, no different to footballers. Hey, you know, with the Euros, they put on magic socks and kiss the ground as they run onto the pitch.
We all have rituals, all of us. It's part of the human condition.
It really is.
You know? And I think sometimes people sort of are a bit cynical about them, but it's like, no, I'm all for it.
I'm just finding it, Dan.
It's all right. It's no rush. People listening can take a little break. Go and grab some water. You found it? Would you mind reading it?
I'd love to read it. And this really connects to the relationship that I have with my body and the most important thing that keeps all of us going, and that's our heart. So it's called Heart Song. Your song is within you. It beats 100,000 times each day. Drop down to your center and connect in a gentle way. For in your lifetime, it will beat its own song, listens to its message, for it is never wrong. Courage is its virtue, emblazoned on your chest. The sacrifices you encounter bring wisdom, zeal, and zest. Follow your heart, my love. It's a gift wrapped in your song. Never lose connection, for your journey is this one. Your song is within you. It beats 100,000 times each day. Love every heartbeat, for it will lead the way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for giving me the platform to do it. So that's the relationship I have with my body, is that it's very heart-centered now. So, you know, after treatment with the steroids and stuff, they've done all sorts of things to my body that I'm still helping my body with. But it's now about...
In what way? Just so people listening can understand a bit more.
Yeah, so steroids cause a lot of inflammation in the body. Ultimately, you know, what they're doing when they use them throughout chemotherapy is to allow your body to take in the drugs and to give your body the strength to be able to take it. The knock-on impacts of steroids to me was not only with my mental health, but also physically. It created a lot of water retention in my body. It's changed the way that I metabolize. So it's really been quite sluggish on my metabolism.
Slows it down a lot,
Absolutely. You know, when I remember the first time I took the steroids, and I literally thought I was Wonder Woman. And then you have the crash and burn, and I was like, these suck. That was on my first cycle. So, you know, I was taking steroids pretty much every week for 5.5 months. So the implications on my body in terms of just it's all of the kind of processes and the natural ways that it would do have all been sort of interfered with by the steroids. So that's changed how...
now?
No.
But because you took so much of them, there's still a bit of an after effect, because your body doesn't then naturally produce steroids when you've already been taking like external stuff. It's tricky. It takes a while to recover from that.
So my body's recovering. So yeah, the relationship with my body is very different now. Like, it's humble. I see my body as sacred, and the way that I train is in service of it. So, you know, one of the things that you and I have been talking about is, you know, how can I start to build back strength and endurance in my muscles again? Because, you know, even swimming, you know, I started swimming after I finished my treatment, and, you know, I managed to do a few lengths to begin with, and the pain I was in afterwards within my legs and my hips and it's just the knock-on implications of the drugs. And I just remember that conversation you and I had, Dan, where I was like, oh, so I've started doing some training and I've been using weights, and you just helped me just sort of get out of my own way and just simplify it and go, hey, how about...
But yeah, for people listening, Ria was thinking she was some sort of athlete and like doing hardcore PT sessions, and I was giving her the gentle reminder of what she already knew, and it was like, there's no rush. My body's been through trauma. Pick 1 or 2 exercises, very slow. There's, do a body weight squat 5 times is much better for you than like doing a HIIT class and then being destroyed for 4 weeks. There's no rush. We're all in different places, whatever's happening to our body, but we have to be kind to it. And that means we have to know where it's at and what it needs. And like you said, you have to do things which serve it.
Absolutely.
And depending on what's going on in our life or how old we are, what our health and our lifestyle and stress, there's so many variables of what's going on, which you can't really tell just by looking at someone. There's so many things going on in people's life. We're all in different places. That's why you can't look left and right to see what other people are doing, and you can't think, oh, I should be doing this because I'm a 36-year-old woman, I should be able to do this, or I'm a 25-year-old guy. No, there's no should. What's right for you now? And that was all we were talking about, just kind of reminding you what you knew. But it's so important.
It
People
really
push themselves too much, often too much.
Yeah, I think it's like the default set, my mindset of kind of falling into kind of, right, I really want to help my body, all with the best of intentions, but I'd kind of gone into the PT world of, right, let's get some 2.5 kg weights. And exactly, that's so ingrained in me. So yeah, it was a really, I was really helped to remind me.
So what kind of training are you doing? What can you do right now in terms of physical training?
Yeah, so yoga has been really present throughout, even during treatment. And, when I say yoga, there were days where I'd literally just lie in Shavasana. That for me is yoga. And it's so underrated, underrated in terms of that as part of a daily practice. So restorative yoga. Now I'm kind of doing more kind of hatha, building strength using my body weight. I've fallen in love with swimming. It's never been something I would have done previously.
Why do you think that is? Is it the nature of being like in water?
100%. Even before we could go back to gyms, I would literally just lie in the bath for as long as I possibly could. Just being in water is like just been very healing for me. And I think that because you're supported as well by the water, it's been a nice place to start out. And walking, I did do some running. And when I say running, I was like walking and jogging to raise awareness for this incredible charity, Penny Bronham, that has been supporting me and many others with our different cancer diagnoses over lockdown. So we managed to raise £4,000 for them. It was run 5K in May. And on the 1st of June, I ran 5K.
All in one go?
All in one go with
amazing
help from a really lovely friend and Imogen on her bike. That's
a real big achievement. I mean, there's a lot of people listening here who can't run 5K at all. And for what you've dealt with, the amount of trauma your body's dealt with and all the steroids and all the after effects, that's pretty amazing. You can run 5K now.
Yeah, I mean, I did it a few weeks back. I used May because it was run 5K in May. And what I was doing throughout May is being really gentle. So, I went out for a walk with my husband and daughter, and then I would do like 1 minute runs, 1 minute jogs, and then walk again. And then, so I gradually was building it up throughout May, being really gentle, kind of going out 2 or 3 times a week. And then I managed to get up to about 2 miles, I think, 2.5 miles. And then thought, right, I'm going to give the 3 miles a go.
Amazing. All right. I'll tell you what I want to ask you. I think a lot of people want to be supportive when people go through have a big life event like cancer, but they don't quite know what to do. And I think sometimes people are a bit guilty of being a bit scared of knowing what to say, so they don't say anything. because I remember when you told me, the first thing I did, I just called you, because that to me is like, I don't want to writing a text saying, oh, I'm here if you need me. For me, that seems like I wouldn't want to hear that. If I told you or anyone that that was happening in my life, I'd kind of hoped my friends would call me up regardless. If I said I want to talk to anyone, I'd expect them to be knocking my door.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the way, I'm in my mid-40s. You kind of go through life experiences. I've seen health issues with members of my family, and you kind of learn that a little bit. But when I was 18, 19, I wouldn't know how to react. What advice do you give for people who like that? If a friend is going through some trauma, what do you think is the best thing to do?
So I kind of have been on both sides of the fence. Like when my mum was diagnosed, I've got a best friend going through this, and I probably still mess up. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give, is that by saying to somebody, I'm here for you, I really don't know what to say right now. Words can't even explain or there are no words that I feel I can say right now, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. And if you ever need anything, I'm here. And I think just being really honest with our own emotions. So, if you're feeling that you're really angry that they're going through this, saying to the individual, I feel really angry that you're going through this, is not fair. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. I remember that call, and that when you called me, and it was just incredible because it made me feel safe. That if someone is brave enough to pick up the phone and talk to me about something really difficult, then I feel safe with those people, because they can hold space for difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And I also know that there are people as well that it will be really difficult, and that a text message is the only way that they can connect. And that's okay too. And
maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe they're just like, that's all they can cope with, because they can't.
Yeah. But that is really then quite useful, and that has been quite useful for somebody like myself, because when there were dire times, I knew who I could pick up the phone to when I wanted to speak to a human voice, and I needed help. And I know that there were a couple of occasions where I picked up the phone to you and asked that. And then I knew that there were other people where if I reached out to them via text because I didn't have the energy to speak that day, or that I just wanted to just let them know, I knew what to expect.
Okay, so thank you for that. It's very interesting. Now, how about talking about it, like on Instagram or blogging about it? Did you do that the first time?
Yeah.
So did you find that, was there any downside of that, or was it all positive?
So in 2014, blogging for me was something that was brand new. I'd never done it before. And that's when I realized the healing aspect of writing about my experiences. And it was really writing it for me, to help me process.
Yeah, I get that, but the actual publishing so other people can see it, was that an integral part? Because there's benefits to writing things down and emotions and journaling, but it's a different thing when you put it out there in the world.
Yeah. So the publishing, I think, really helped me to connect to other people that may have been in a similar place to me, or had loved ones that were in a similar position going through something like cancer. So in those early days of back in 2014, there was some particular posts that I'd done, and my brother was living in Australia, so it was another way for me to connect with him, and to what would normally probably be like conversations around the dinner table. He was able to read my blogs and just see where I was at, as well as friends and people that were also going through cancer, or loved ones that were going through cancer.
Yeah, and I guess just the process of writing is because it makes you articulate how you feel about it when you have to, because I guess it's just so overwhelming. When I think really shit happens, it's overwhelming. But when you have to explain it, and talking about it can be a bit much, because you'll normally have to talk about it to someone else, and then that's another issue. So I can imagine, I can imagine it being very therapeutic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just how long did, like, when you wrote a blog, did you like write it a million times, or was it just like a stream of consciousness, or
Stream of
really?
consciousness.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's been really interesting last year and this year is that I've done some blogs, but most of it has been poetry.
Yeah.
And for me, the poetry was a total stream of consciousness. Like, I look back at these poems now and I just am like, where are these coming? Like, there's nothing I can't describe, you know. It was literally a stream of consciousness. Like Heart Song, I wrote that when I was sat in the chair having chemotherapy pumped into me.
I really hope you publish these. They're gonna
I'm in the process of writing a book.
Yeah. Well, are the poems going to be inside the book?
Yeah, the poems are going to be the chapters of the book.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's going to help so many people.
I really hope so. They're super special to me in terms of how they helped me through a really difficult time.
So what's your plan now in terms of like your journey? We're all on a well-being journey, right? And you've been through these like massive traumatic things and come through the other side. What's your plan moving forward?
I think where I'm at the moment is I had my recent scan, my 3-month scan. So 3 months of not having any chemotherapy, and had the scan. And that for me was like reaffirming the deep knowing inside. So like the deep knowing inside was like, it's going to be okay. The scans are going to be clear. And the humanist in me is like, but is it really going to be? And then I had the scan and my scans were clear. So as I look ahead, there feels like a few areas that I really want to dive into more fully. One of them is the book that I'm writing at the moment. And that will sort of ultimately, the reason I'm writing it is for my daughter. I mean, that was the inspiration behind it when I originally had the diagnosis last year. The work that I do in the space of meditation and mindfulness, and to move into this space of mentoring and coaching people on this kind of integrative way of living, through health, fitness, well-being, whatever you want to call it. I used something recently at the weekend. I was teaching a yoga class and I said, you know, over the last sort of 20 plus years, I've come to learn that I facilitate movement in the body and stillness in the mind. And that really sort of resonates with the work I want to do going forwards.
That sounds cool. You need to trademark that. So you know, if I was a bit less ethical, I'd have stolen that for a new product. That sounds wonderful. That sounds great, Ria.
So that's kind of the path.
Yeah.
The steps on the path I'm currently working on.
Wonderful. All right, we've got a quick fire round coming up now.
Ooh.
Quick questions. I need your answers quick. All right, bit of fun. Favorite book?
Definitely Women Who Run with Wolves.
What's that about? Not read it.
Oh, it is awakening the wild women inside us.
All right. Well,
the wild feminine.
I guess that's why I haven't read it.
Yeah, but it's an incredible book, and you know, it's a book that I will go back to again and again. And in one of her final chapters, Clarissa talks about surrendering to the highest power that is beyond our human selves. So incredible book.
What's the name of the author?
Clarissa Piccolo Estes, and I probably pronounced it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, people listening, check that out. Favorite type of exercise?
At the moment, it's definitely swimming.
Okay. Favorite methodology exercise?
Oh, Cape Town spins.
Yeah, that's the best one. Most fun. You could probably do that right now.
Yeah,
you could do that.
Yeah. Supergirl, I think. Yeah,
you could do a lot of MX Urban, a lot of like the soft, like the first few days.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not the jumping split squats.
Yeah, and I still have not forgiven you for when we did the video and I was the one that ended up doing jumping split squats out of every video.
So for people, obviously a lot of people listening are MX members. you will see Ria doing jumping split squats. No one else wanted to do it.
I was in agony.
But you, at the time, I think you and Sophie were the only trainers. So everyone else was like models or dancers. So I knew you would have good form. So that was the idea. Next one, favorite TV show on at the moment?
Oh, so I haven't really watched any on at the moment. Oh, I don't really have one.
Favorite
A previous one.
favorite TV show in the last 5 years then?
Walking Dead.
You know what? I've never seen any episodes. That's a zombie one, isn't it?
It is, and I love it. I think it reminds me of so many people outside can be like zombies.
It's like, isn't it like 10 seasons on it? I mean, it's a big show, right?
It is. I mean, I was watching it right from season 1, so.
Yeah, no, I can't. It's too late for me to get into. I know someone major dies every season, so there's no point. All right, favorite album?
Anything by Mumford and Sons, to be honest.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
No.
What was your first album you ever bought?
Oh my goodness! Do you know what? It was.
Going to show your age here.
Madonna.
It's not bad.
Yeah, would have been Madonna, definitely. I was like a huge Madonna fan.
Mine was the House Martins. Remember them in the 80s, the House Martins?
I do, but it wasn't my style of music. But yeah, I do remember them.
I was like 14. I can't. It's not something I'd listen to now. All right. First concert you went to?
MC Hammer.
Oh my God! Really?
MC Hammer. I went to a concert with my parents, which was Chris Ria, which is definitely. Yeah. I was quite young when I went to that, but when I chose to go to one,
yeah, as an adult, MC Hammer. That's cool. Mine was Suede.
Yeah, you can see the difference in music.
Yeah, I'm obviously a lot cooler than you. All right. Obviously, apart from this one, what's your favorite podcast?
Brené Brown.
Oh, she's great.
Oh,
I watched a TED talk of her about a month ago. Brilliant. She's wonderful, isn't she?
Absolutely. Like, I've had a girl crush on Brené Brown for probably the best part of 7 or 8 years.
Okay, a couple more questions. Favorite restaurant?
I'd have to say, just with having a little girl, Bill's. Good old Bill's.
I love Bill's.
I
used to eat there every morning because there's a Bill's right next to when I'm in London, the main place where I work in Soho, and I'd always go there for breakfast because they make the best scrambled eggs.
They do, and my daughter adores it. If I was going with Gareth, it would be our local, which is called the Woodspeen. It's like a Michelin star. So when we want to treat ourselves, the Woodspeen, do check them out. Go there because it's incredible. Yeah, all Bill's.
Cool. How about your favorite snack?
Dates with almond butter.
Oh, that's a good snack.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Cut the date in half and fill it with some almond butter.
I'm quite simple. These are mine. Simple strawberries.
Oh, yeah, strawberries.
I can't stop eating them. You know what, weirdly, I got into, so pretentious, I've got really into tropical fruit recently, and I've got really into dragon fruit and granadillas.
Oh, wow.
Weirdly, and I get them delivered. Now, it's so middle class. I get them delivered every Thursday, like granadillas and dragon fruit. They're really expensive. They're like £4 each, but I just love them. They're so good.
You used to have them when you were in Brazil?
No.
Where's the connection coming from?
I don't know. I just woke up one morning. I was like, I really fancy a granadilla, and I couldn't find one in when I get my food delivered from Ocado. So I had to source a company which specialise in tropical fruit delivery in Surrey. This is the most middle class conversation. I apologise to people listening, but I got really into them. Like all different types of. They're amazing.
Not interested where that thought's come from?
No, I don't want to explore it. I just want to enjoy it. All right. Favorite quote, if you have one?
I do. It's up on my screen, actually, from a blog that I wrote. So, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day that says, I will try again tomorrow. And that is by Mary Ann Radmaker. Perfect.
Love it. All right. Well, let's just finish off. Thank you, Ria. I mean, do you have any kind of final things, any kind of final words of wisdom or little tips or anything you'd like to finish off on?
one of the tips that I just like to, or reflections that I'd like to leave all your listeners with is, what would happen if you were to just slow down just a tiny bit and then see where it takes you?
And for people listening, please just contemplate that. There isn't a right or wrong answer. Just spend some time thinking about it. It's such a powerful question.
And people can follow me on Instagram, Ria Ingleby.
Yeah.
I occasionally have a flurry of posts and then I don't post at all.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Then it's more special when you do. I'm like, oh, Ria's posted.
Yeah, I'm not sort of diligent and post every single day, but when I do post, there's like this flurry of little posts.
But I like your posts. I mean, I don't follow that many people, like maybe a couple hundred people I follow on Instagram, and so because so many posts are just kind of generic, or just people just like sharing like stuff which isn't that important. But when you post, it's actually it's actually worth reading. You know what I mean? I know my posts are rarely worth reading. That's like, I don't really take Instagram seriously, but I know of yours, they're kind of meaningful. So I like reading them.
Oh, thank you.
I like the way you do Instagram. So many people just kind of vomit on there. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah, I'm
off. Getting old. It just doesn't appeal to me. That kind of like just speaking for the sake of speaking. I've never.
Whenever I just get that sense of urge of like, I just want to put something out there, then I just go with it.
So people check out Ria Ingleby. Your poems are up there, aren't they? I've seen some.
My poems are on there, and then my blog, my website is riaingleby.com, and that's where you'll find Making Friends with My Cancer, which is my blog on there.
Oh, wonderful. Look, Ria, I always like talking to you. Thank you so much for being so like honest and candid and chatting about this, because I think it's, like I said, not only really interesting, it is really interesting because not all of us go through this, and not all of us can ask those questions because we feel like we can't really ask, so I think it's really interesting, but it's also just really useful, and it's just nice to remind ourselves that our bodies can be quite fragile and we have to look after ourselves.
And there was something that you often said, Dan, which is your body is an instrument, not an ornament, and that has always been the time that we've known each other. I always come back to that, keep coming back to it time and time again, is that let's look after our instrument.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that was Ria Ingleby. I do hope you found that conversation interesting, useful. I mean, she's amazing, isn't she? And you know what, I just want to say a couple of things. If someone is going through something really hard, just reach out to them. Like Ria said, it's okay not knowing exactly what to say. I would put one caveat in there. Please actually think about it for a second. Sometimes with a bid to be positive, your comments can come across, or one's comments can come across a little bit insensitive. And things like, oh, it all happens for a reason. Please don't say shit like that. Sometimes life's just really unfair. And telling someone that life happens for a reason when, I don't know, their parents just died, or they've just been diagnosed with cancer, or their kids are really sick, it's just fucking heartless. So please think about the words used a little bit. And if you're not sure what to say, just say, look, I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you. That just helps so much. Also, when people go through stuff, not everyone wants to communicate it. A lot of times we keep it inside, and that can manifest in sort of hardcore introversion. It can also manifest in being a bit stroppy or angry, which is completely fine. So I think if someone's a bit of a dick to you or acting a bit off, rather than thinking, oh, they're being an idiot, maybe stop for a second and think, God, you don't know what's happening in their life. Maybe their husband is really sick. Maybe they just flunked a major exam and they've been practicing for years. You never know what's going on in someone's life. Not everyone shares everything, and even the people who look like they share everything, I'm sure they keep some things back. So I think when in doubt, always err towards kindness. And I mean, man, look at the world we live in. The world needs more kindness right now. So that was Ria. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want to reach out to her, if you found this episode useful, I'm sure she'd love that, particularly on her Instagram. I think that's kind of a cool thing to do. I know if I'm on someone else's podcast and when I've said something which resonated and people have kind of contacted me directly, it's kind of cool. So if this affected you in any way, reach out to Instagram, let her know how it helped. I think that's a really nice thing to do. And also, on a final note, if you're struggling to think about what to do with any spare money, please use it for cancer research. Both my parents died of cancer pretty recently. I've had so many friends affected by it too, and it's just a shitty thing. And I'm in my mid-40s. Talk to anyone in their 40s, they know someone or have loved people who have died of cancer. It's everywhere, and it's sometimes it gets a lot of attention, sometimes it gets less attention, but spending any spare money, giving it to cancer research, which I do, or Mary Curie, or any of the wonderful charities out there doing little runs or 10k runs or marathons for cancer charity, please do that. It's a horrendous thing which happens, and it's the more lives we can save and the more lives we can help, particularly people who are terminal, the better. All right, next week I'll be back on with another episode. We have a wonderful nutritionist and model. Well, she's a nutritionist and a model, sharing practical tips, talking supplements, talking food choices, just a very practical episode. And also, Ria is the first of many of our MX instructors, our certified Methodology X instructors, which I'm inviting onto the show to discuss all things fitness, life and well-being. So expect more real life stories, because I don't know about you, but I love just having conversations like this. I find quite powerful, and a little break from just giving constant tips. All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the MX Podcast. All feedback, reviews, and social shares are very much appreciated. To find out more about the Methodology X Online Members Club, our award-winning MX Group fitness classes, or to join our global family of MX instructors, please visit danrobertsgroup.com.